It was just another ordinary day at the Grandview National Bank. The sun was shining, and the hum of business as usual filled the air. But then, a man walked in wearing a bright red MAGA hat. His presence wasn't unusual, but it soon became the catalyst for an incident that would turn the entire banking world upside down. David, the bank manager, saw him approaching the counter and immediately felt an uncomfortable tension. He had seen the man enter before, a regular customer, but today felt different. The hat, the politics, it was all too much. Without any hesitation, David approached the customer, a cold smile on his face. "I'm sorry, sir, but we can't serve you while you're wearing that hat," David said, his voice stern. The man, clearly taken aback, looked up at David. "Excuse me? I'm here for business, not politics." "I understand," David replied, "but we have a policy here. No political attire in the bank. Please remove it or leave." The entire bank seemed to go silent. Some customers stopped what they were doing, watching the scene unfold. The man, now visibly frustrated, stood still for a moment. He could feel the eyes of everyone on him. With a heavy sigh, he took out his phone. "1 minute," he said, his voice cold as he dialed a number. 7 minutes passed in complete silence as the tension in the bank thickened. David stood at his desk, pretending to work, but clearly uneasy. What could take so long? Then, the intercom crackled to life, breaking the silence. "Attention, everyone. Please be advised that effective immediately, Mr. Elon Musk is the new owner of this bank." The words hung in the air, and the entire bank seemed to freeze. Every customer looked around, unsure if they had heard correctly. David's face drained of color. He had no idea who the man in the MAGA hat really was. What do you mean?" David whispered under his breath, his heart racing as he watched the man smile, knowing full well the truth was just beginning to unfold. David stood frozen as the announcement echoed through the bank. The words "new owner" seemed surreal. He had never imagined that the man in the MAGA hat, the one he'd just refused service, was, in fact, the one who owned the very bank he worked at. It felt like a nightmare. Around him, customers exchanged confused glances. Some had already begun to search for their phones to verify the announcement. Others just stood in shock, not believing their ears. David felt a knot in his stomach. He couldn't focus. His mind raced back to the last few moments. Was this a joke? Could it be true? "Excuse me," David stammered, walking toward the man in the red hat who was calmly sitting at a nearby table, scrolling through his phone. Are you really the new owner?" The man looked up slowly, a sly grin on his face. "I think you heard the announcement," he replied, his voice even. "It seems like this bank is in new hands now." David's heart skipped a beat. The realization began to hit him. This was no ordinary customer. This was Elon Musk, one of the richest men in the world, the very man who had just purchased the bank, probably in the past hour, and David had just made the biggest mistake of his life by refusing him service. The bank manager's face flushed red with embarrassment, and his mind scrambled to figure out how to handle this situation. But it was too late to change anything now. Elon stood up and walked toward the counter, his posture confident, his expression unbothered. He looked at the staff, who were all watching the scene unfold. "Seems like we have a bit of a situation here," Elon said, his voice carrying easily across the room. "Let me clear things up for you." David's palms were sweating. What was Elon going to do now? Was this just the beginning of a major shift or something far worse? David stood there, unsure of what to do next. The room was thick with tension, the eyes of every customer fixed on him. Elon's presence felt commanding, and he knew there was no way to undo the damage. His refusal to serve Elon wasn't just a personal mistake. It had now become public, and he could feel his job slipping away. Elon took a moment to look around the bank, noticing the uneasy faces of the employees and customers. He turned back to David, his expression unreadable. "I'm sure you have a lot of questions, David," Elon began. But right now, it's important to understand that things are changing around here. You're working for me now." David's throat felt dry. The words, "you're working for me now," hung heavily in the air. The reality of the situation set in. Elon Musk wasn't just a customer, he was the new owner. David had no idea what his next steps should be. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know. I didn't realize who you were," David muttered, his voice faltering. Elon smiled faintly. "It's all right. I get it. I'm a little difficult to recognize in person sometimes. But now, let's move forward." David tried to swallow his nerves, unsure whether to apologize further or to start thinking of damage control. But before he could say anything else, Elon raised a hand. "I think this is a great opportunity for change. But first, we need to address what just happened. This is a place of business. Respect goes both ways." The silence in the bank was deafening as the employees and customers anxiously awaited the next words from their new boss. David's heart raced as Elon glanced around. What was coming next? Was he about to lose his job, or was this part of something bigger? Elon walked to the front of the bank, his eyes scanning the room of employees and customers. He wasn't just here to make an announcement, he was here to shift the culture. "Ladies and gentlemen, I know that what just happened was shocking, but it's time to rethink the way we do things here," Elon began, his voice strong but calm. "We are going to build a bank that doesn't just cater to one group of people but to everyone. No matter your background, your politics, your beliefs, or your preferences, we are going to serve you." There was a collective gasp from the customers in the bank. They were hearing a new vision, one they hadn't expected. The tension in the room began to lift slightly, as if the idea of change was more palatable than the idea of rigid policies. "But let me be clear," Elon continued. "This is about more than just a hat or a policy. It's about respect for the people who use this bank, and it's about building something greater than we've had before." David could feel his stomach churning. Was this some kind of corporate strategy, or was Elon setting the stage for something much more radical? Elon turned to David. "As of today, David, you'll be getting new instructions. I'll be watching you closely." The words hung in the air, and David didn't know how to respond. Was he fired, or was there a chance for redemption? Elon gave David a knowing look, and then turned to face the rest of the room. "Get ready. Big changes are coming. News of Elon Musk's purchase of the bank and the refusal incident spread like wildfire across social media. Articles, videos, and opinion pieces flooded the internet, turning the story into a national sensation. Some praised Elon for his bold move, suggesting that it could mean a new era of inclusive banking. Others criticized him for making such a controversial entrance into the business world. But one thing was clear: the entire country was watching. At the bank, employees were confused and anxious. They had seen the headlines. They had heard the rumors. But now, they were living through the aftermath. Elon wasn't just an eccentric billionaire. He was now their boss. David sat at his desk, scrolling through the online articles, each one more biting than the last. He had become the face of the scandal. Some comments were sympathetic, but others branded him as the villain. But what shocked him most was how quickly the tides were turning. People were already starting to rally around Elon's vision, and the atmosphere at the bank was changing. There was an odd sense of excitement in the air. People were beginning to wonder what the future held. Elon's next move was inevitable. But what was it? Would he truly reshape the bank into something revolutionary? Or was this all part of a bigger game? In the days that followed, the atmosphere at the bank shifted dramatically. Elon Musk's presence hung over everything. The employees, once comfortable with the predictable routines of their jobs, now felt a strange sense of urgency. Every action seemed to be scrutinized by an invisible eye. David, the bank manager, couldn't shake the weight of his mistake. His refusal to serve Elon had not only attracted unwanted attention, it had now become a defining moment in his career. He had become the symbol of outdated policies and blind rigidity, and Elon's vision was already starting to make waves. One morning, Elon arrived unannounced at the bank, flanked by his team of advisors. Word quickly spread throughout the building that something big was about to happen. Employees gathered in the conference room, nervously chatting as they awaited the arrival of the new boss. Elon walked in, his usual casual demeanor masking the intensity of his words. "We're going to do things differently," he said, looking around at the gathered staff. "You've all been trained in a system that caters to the old way of thinking. But we're moving forward. No more out-of-touch management. No more customer disservice. If anyone here doesn't want to adapt, well, there's the door." David felt his throat tighten. His own position was now in jeopardy, but so were the jobs of many others. The stakes had never been higher. "Elon, what's the vision here?" one of the senior employees asked hesitantly. Elon smiled. "Inclusivity, transparency, and making banking as easy as checking your social media. We'll have a system where every customer is treated equally. No discrimination, no judgment. This is about breaking down barriers and building trust." It wasn't just about improving customer service anymore. It was a radical overhaul of the banking industry. Elon wasn't just changing the rules. He was rewriting them entirely. As the meeting ended, Elon turned to David. "I have a project for you," he said with a glint in his eyes. What did Elon want from him now? Elon didn't waste time. The next day, David was called to a private meeting in Elon's office. The sleek, minimalist decor of the room made David feel even more out of place. Elon sat behind the desk, a vision of calm confidence, while David fidgeted in his chair across from him. "I have a job for you, David," Elon said, his tone matter of fact. "You've been here long enough to understand the flaws in this bank, but I need you to see it from a different angle now." David swallowed. He had no idea what was coming. "I want you to spearhead a complete redesign of our customer service policies," Elon continued. "No more bureaucratic nonsense. We're going to create a customer-first experience, and you're going to lead that charge." David was stunned. This was his chance at redemption, but it was also a monumental task. "And how do you want me to do that?" he asked, unsure if he was ready for such a challenge. Elon leaned forward, his eyes piercing through David. "You're going to take everything you've learned in the past, throw it out, and start fresh. Get creative. No rules, no restrictions. If you think it'll work, we'll make it happen. But you need to prove that you're capable of doing things the Elon Musk way." David nodded slowly, the weight of the responsibility settling in. It wasn't just about making a few changes. It was about creating an entirely new culture for the bank. "You've got 1 month," Elon said, leaning back in his chair. "I'll be watching closely." As David left the office, his mind was racing. How would he ever pull this off? Could he really live up to Elon's expectations? Over the next several weeks, David dove headfirst into his new project. It wasn't just about redesigning customer service. It was about rethinking the entire customer experience. He began by meeting with employees, customers, and even external consultants to understand what had gone wrong with the bank's previous system. But Elon's influence was always looming in the background. He would often pop in unannounced, asking tough questions, offering ideas, and challenging David's every move. Elon's vision for the bank was ambitious, to say the least. He wanted to create a system where customers could use their phones, interact with AI-powered services, and access their accounts without any friction. The old rules of banking were being tossed out the window. No more waiting in long lines, no more rigid regulations that alienated customers. Elon wasn't just trying to attract a certain type of customer. He was building a bank for everyone, regardless of their political or social leanings. One afternoon, David sat in Elon's office, presenting a new proposal for a mobile-first platform that would allow customers to manage everything from their phone, with a user-friendly interface designed for simplicity and ease. Elon was silent for a long time, studying the proposal carefully. Finally, he looked up and smiled. "I like this. It's not just a bank, it's an experience. Now, let's make sure we get this out to the masses. We need to disrupt the entire financial system. David couldn't believe it. The changes he had been implementing were actually coming to life, and Elon was fully backing him. Just as David thought he had everything under control, an unexpected email arrived. Urgent. A major competitor is preparing to launch a similar product next month. Elon's eyes darkened as he read the message. What did this mean for their plans? As Elon's plans to revolutionize the banking system began to take shape, a new player emerged on the scene, one that threatened to derail everything. A rival tech billionaire, someone with a similar disruptive vision, was gearing up to launch a new, innovative banking platform that promised to rival Elon's. Elon wasn't the type of person who backed down from a challenge. In fact, he thrived on it. But this new competitor wasn't just offering an app or a service. They were offering a complete overhaul of the banking model, one that could easily attract millions of customers. David found himself caught in the middle of this growing rivalry. While he had been working tirelessly to implement Elon's vision, he now had to contend with the pressure of a ticking clock. If they didn't launch first, Elon's entire vision could be stolen by the competitor. Elon didn't take kindly to being second. "We're going to beat them to the punch," he declared one morning during a meeting. "No one takes what's ours. We're faster, smarter, and more innovative. We'll make sure that everyone knows who's the leader in this industry." David could feel the weight of the challenge. The next few weeks were going to be critical. He had to help Elon launch something groundbreaking, something that would not only put them ahead of the competition, but also cement their place at the top. As the days ticked down, Elon's team received a cryptic message. "We know your plans. You won't be the first to innovate." Who was behind this threat, and how far would they go to stop Elon's plans? The rivalry with the competitor escalated quickly. Elon's team worked around the clock, strategizing and finalizing the details of their new launch. The pressure was immense. David, feeling the heat of the competition, could only focus on one thing. The clock was ticking, and they had to beat their rival to the market. Then, one day, Elon pulled David aside and looked him dead in the eye. "David, we've done everything we can. Now it's time to make our move." His voice was cold, determined. The competitor had just launched their product, but Elon's team had managed to pull off a surprise, an exclusive partnership with several major companies that would offer their new banking platform as the default for millions of users. It was a move that no one saw coming. As the launch event unfolded, Elon addressed the media. "We didn't just create a bank, we created a movement, and we're only getting started." David watched, a sense of relief flooding over him. They had won the race, but Elon's final words made it clear. The competition wasn't over. This was just the beginning. As Elon smiled at the press conference, a reporter raised their hand. "Mr. Musk, there are rumors of a secret partnership. Can you confirm it?" Elon's eyes narrowed. The game was far from over. What was next?